Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to OLC4O Term 2B, brought to you by Wassa Distance Education Center and myself, your instructor, Mike Laverty. Thank you for tuning in on this almost said lovely summer day, but lovely spring day. So today's date is Tuesday, May the 30th, 2023. And today's class marks class number 25 of I believe, our 34 classes together. So we're definitely more than 2/3 of the way through this course, and we're coming very close to the end of Term 2B. We are working our way through Unit 3, and today I have two assignments up on the board. We'll see how far we get through. I've got assignment 37 and assignment 38. These are very important assignments. Assignment 37 deals with creating your resume, so I might spend a lot of time on that, and there may not be enough time to delve into assignment 38, which is writing an information paragraph, but we'll see how things go. Yesterday we talked about cover letters, and I didn't really have an opportunity to actually put a cover. We looked at many cover letters, but maybe today what I want to do is I want to put up an example of a resume, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll put it up in a Word document, and then I'll show you how I'll show you how I would create one together, or how I would use a Word document to create my own resume. So maybe we'll focus on that today. So thanks for tuning in for, let's call it, an auspicious session of OLC4O. So I always try to introduce a new word at the start of the class. So when something is auspicious, it gets off to a positive start, and it leads somewhere positive. So just putting out some positive energy out there, and hoping that all the students who take this course and other courses like it find success now, and success in their course, and then hopefully find success in the future by either finishing your grade 12 diploma, finding that job or that career that you love, or maybe going on to post-secondary, college, university, or just finding a path for you and your family. So just wishing everybody the best and putting out some positive energy. So here's some important dates to keep in mind. We are in week 7 of term 2B. After this, we'll have 2 more weeks. So it's of course a 9-week course, and we will continue our discussion in those following 2 weeks after this one. For any potential grads out there, your deadline for submitting work is June the 9th. Other students have a deadline of June 16th for submitting work in this course. So I will mention those dates for every class here on in. So they're very important deadlines for you to keep in mind. If you want to graduate this year and be part of our graduation ceremony, there's lots of steps that you have to take to achieve that goal. But first and foremost, you need to have all of your work submitted to your teacher by June the 9th, and then after that you can arrange to write your final exam, but you have to have all your work in by that date. If you want to finish off your coursework for term 2B, then you have that deadline of June 16th, so the following week, for submitting work in this course. If you can't make that, then you'll have to register for the summer term and start your course all over again. So we want to avoid that situation and have people submit work now. So if you've got work, start submitting that to your teacher, get it in now, and then if you haven't really gotten started yet, if you've been registered, it might be a better option for you just to get started at the start of the summer term, which will commence at the end of June. So that might be an option for you. So, but if you've been submitting work regularly and you've been putting in the work now, then should maybe try your best to finish it off now. So we covered units 1 and 2. We started the unit 3 discussion last week number 6, and now week number 7 we're continuing our discussion, and then we'll spend the next 2 weeks, or the next 3 weeks after this, finishing off unit 4. Once unit 4 is out of the way, I will do my best to prepare you for the final exam. I can't tell you what's going to be on the final exam specifically, but I will do my best to, prepare you and give you some tips and strategies for taking exams and just giving you a general sense of what's going to be on there. And, this OLC4O is, of course, a literacy course. So you will be asked to read documents and respond to them. That's going to be a huge part of it, right? So learning how to just look at a text, learning how to break it down, to see how it's organized, talking about its purpose, who wrote it, why did they write it, what were they hoping to get out of writing it, and then you will in turn be asked to do a lot of writing, right? Either by responding to a text or by responding to like a prompt. So, write about this subject, or, write an essay about this. Or write one of the many examples of text that we've studied in this course. So, thank you for tuning in or watching on the YouTube if you're tuning in after the fact. This class does broadcast live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 p.m. to 1:50 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can always phone the studio at 1-800-465-7144, or locally here in Sioux Lookout at 1-807, or anywhere in the 807 region, 1-807-737-4017 with any questions or comments. We are on the airways at 91.9 FM, Bell ExpressVu, channel 972. And you can also listen to the course on Zoom. You can also, go to zoom.us or use the Zoom app on a phone. You should, somewhere on the application, you'll see a join button or join meeting, and then you'll enter my meeting ID, which is 417-6699-799. And of course, I archive all of my content on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Laverty Wasa, just search me up, Laverty space WAHSA. So look for Laverty Wasa, and then go to my playlist. You'll see all my OLC4O videos. If you look for the term 2B, you'll find all my videos that I've streamed, all the classes I've done for this term. There's a term 2B and a term 1B that you can watch. And I try to put the assignment in the title of the video. So if you're looking for a particular assignment, you just go to that unit playlist and look for that assignment. You could reach out to me directly at mlaverty@nnecschools.org. You can find me on Facebook Messenger. So again, same as my YouTube handle, Laverty space WAHSA. And please phone the WAS office, 1-800-667-3703. That's a free long-distance number, 1-800-667-3703. So that's if you're have any questions about your path to graduation, completing this course, registering for the summer term, your final exam, any questions you might have about your progress as a student, that's the number you should be reaching out to and phoning, right? Or reach out to myself, right? So now's the time. Any questions, we are here to help you through, okay? So here is today's lesson. We will look at our words of the day. We'll look at a headline, and we will look at Unit 3, Assignment 14. Sorry, Unit 3, Lesson 14, Assignment 37. So, and that is creating a resume. That's our big goal for today. And, I'll just say time permitting, we'll look at Assignment 38, which is your info paragraph. Yeah, we can write the full version. That's your information paragraph. Your learning goals for today are to look at examples of resumes to create a model for your own. That's assignment 37. And if we have enough time, we'll review the process of using a graphic organizer as planning for an information paragraph. Yeah, to help you plan out your documents, right? So your success criteria will be to create a chronological resume of your own, assignment 37, and if we have enough time, again, use a graphic organizer to create an outline for an information paragraph. All right, so I'd like to just start things off with some cartoons that I found online. The first one, these are all interviewee situations. So the interviewer says, "Isn't Dunder Mifflin the fictitious business from The Office?" So anybody familiar with The Office show? And the person being interviewed says, "Yes, I watch a lot of TV." So if you're familiar with The Office, it's a pretty awesome show that delves into office politics and what it means to to be in a workplace. And I think maybe above all, it shows you maybe how not to be a boss, right? I think that's kind of one of the punchlines of the show is just how not to lead people, how not to how not to inspire your team. The second comic says, "It says on your resume that you're a perfectionist," so the word perfectionist is spelled wrong. So this just illustrates the importance of being meticulous, the importance of paying attention, and paying really close attention to making sure you don't spell anything incorrectly on your resume. Okay, so that's I can't stress that one enough. Always good to get a second pair of eyes on your resume. If you've got anybody who can read that for you, anybody you trust that can read this thing over. If you've got 2 people, 3 people, do that. And then even yourself, right? I haven't mentioned that tip in a while, but it's a really important one. The importance of reading your work out loud. Okay, so when you read your work out loud, you will catch that, right? Because your eyes could read the word perfectionist and you might not catch it, but if you say it out loud and look at it at the same time, you might catch that mistake. The third comic says, "Don't call that company. They might not give me a good reference right now." So it might seem like obvious advice, but only include professional references that are going to give you a good reference and are going to speak about you highly, right? And if you think someone's kind of on the fence about you, you may not want to include them. So but yeah, you need to, and more on that as we talk about the resume itself. But it's a funny joke, but it's very true. The fourth comic says, "This is a very impressive resume. Did you pad it yourself?" So padding a resume is putting in extra stuff. This is like stretching the truth, trying to make the job you did seem more important. So you want to avoid doing that at all costs. You want to be honest, and you want to think about everything you say in your resume, everything you say in your cover letter is going to be something that could be talked about in an interview, right? So if you say something on your resume, then expect the employer to ask you some follow-up questions about it. So be as honest as you can. Don't pad that resume. Just give the best version of you, and that version of you has to be based on reality. The last comic, number 5, says, "Your resume is certainly memorable. You used a different font for every word you wrote." Okay, so that's, some people think you have to have like fancy fonts and colors, and, from what I've read and my experience in doing interviews and looking at resumes, you want to keep things simple, and you might want to like maybe 2 fonts at the most, and just relying upon bold and underlining things and making your headings bigger, and put the focus on the words themselves, right? There's lots of templates you can find online. Microsoft has plenty of functional templates that you can use when you're applying for a job, right? So you don't need lots of different colors and fancy fonts and images and banners. You just need the words, right? You need the content. You need to talk about yourself. All right, so here are some Anishinaabe-Moan words and English words. The first Anishinaabe-Moan word is Giki-na-wabi, which is a verb which is she or he learns by observation. An English word, learn, is a verb to acquire knowledge of or skill in by study, instruction, or experience. From the Old English, Leornian, learn or teach, related to the Germanic word of lore, okay? So, like storytelling, right? So you want to think, like what, and that's kind of what you're demonstrating in your resume. You're showing what you've learned, and you do that by talking about your specific training and the things you've done to educate yourself. But you're also showing, just how you've how you've learned by being a human being, how you've learned through various experiences, what you've learned by being on the job, what skills you picked up. Some other Anishinaabe-Moan words are nanda gikendan, a verb that means to seek to know it, seek to learn it. Nitiwa wichige is she or he is skilled at something, knows how to make things, right? So that's what the resume is all about. What are you good at doing? What are you good at making? What can you make happen? What can you do, right? What problems can you solve? How can you be put into a team, and how do you make things happen? Some English words, we've got network. So network, when used as a verb, is to cultivate people who can be helpful to one professionally, especially in finding employment or moving to a higher position. So I want you to think closely about that when you think about your resume and your cover letter. You want to have that network of people who are plugged into things that you aren't plugged into, and then we have these people in our lives, right? We have friends, we have family, we have coworkers, we've got people we've never met, but we can meet them online. And again, they're plugged into things that we're not plugged into, and we can reach out to them, and they can give us information and tell us about jobs that are being posted and things like that. And I like that word cultivate, right? So when you cultivate something, you help it grow, you help it flourish, right? Kind of like when you work in a garden and you cultivate certain plants, right? You want to cultivate that network and make it grow. Instruct is a verb which means to furnish with knowledge, especially by a systematic method, to teach, to train, to educate, okay? So when you're doing that resume, you want to demonstrate what you've learned and the steps you've taken to learning it. So and you want to demonstrate your ongoing learning, right? And it's like it's your abilities to improve yourself. So here's our article of the day. The headline reads, Sweden looks to Canada as it launches Truth Commission into treatment of Indigenous people. And so just a review of our news report format, which I think is very important to do. We've got our headline, we've got our photo, our caption, our caption reads, Geraldine Shingoose at her Winnipeg home on January 6th. This was 2023, earlier this year. We've got the photo credit. Shannon Van Rays of the Globe and Mail took that photo. So there we go. And there's our headline once again. Sweden looks to Canada as it launches Truth Commission into treatment of Indigenous people. So Sweden is, of course, a proper noun. We capitalize it, capital S. A verb, looks, that's what they did. So Sweden looks to, that's a preposition. They look to Canada, another proper noun, right? Capital C. As it launches. So it is a pronoun, and pronouns always refer back to another noun. So in this case, it refers back to Sweden. So instead of saying Sweden looks to Canada as Sweden launches, we use the pronoun it to replace the noun Sweden. Another verb, it launches a truth commission, so it's not just any commission. There's an adjective that modifies the word commission, so it's a truth commission into treatment of Indigenous people. So it's not looking at the treatment of people in general, it's looking at the treatment of Indigenous people. So adjectives always modify, not they can modify other things, but they usually modify nouns. And I highlight this because I want you to use lots of adjectives and descriptive words in your writing. Okay, that's what makes your writing come alive. Is these descriptive words, these specific words that make your details come alive for the reader. So here's the article itself. Geraldine Shingoose wasn't quite sure what to think of the email that landed in her inbox from the Canadian Embassy in Sweden. Actually, I'll just that's the article, the first part of the article. We'll look at it piece by piece. So here's the lead paragraph. It's got a hook and a setup. Geraldine Shingoose wasn't quite sure what to think of the email that landed in her inbox from the Canadian Embassy in Sweden. Right? So that's our hook. That's what gets your attention. Second paragraph says, for years, Ms. Shingoose had spoken to school groups, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, that are known as the TRC, and even Montreal Canadians goaltender Carey Price about the abuses she suffered in Canada's state-funded residential school system, right? So, you know, that second paragraph could have led off the news report, but sometimes you want to get a hook, right? So we get this mysterious email. We don't know what it's about. We know it's from the Canadian Embassy in Sweden. And then we get some context about who she is, how she's a speaker, and she's speaking to all these important people, and the TRC, and my favorite goalie, Carey Price. Then we transition into the main content of the article. Now that same state wanted to press her into diplomatic service, requesting her presence in all places, Stockholm. So she's being asked to go to Sweden. And then we get a quote from the subject of the article, right? So the subject of the article is, you know, who or what it's about. So it's nice to have a direct quote from that subject. And she says, quote, "I was pretty shocked to receive an invite like that," said the Saltu grandmother, who is from the Tutinawaz-Being Treaty Reserve in Manitoba and now lives in Winnipeg. But the request intrigued her. So that's another that's kind of a great example of how you can alternate longer sentences or longer paragraphs with shorter ones. And that's sort of like another hook, right? You know, but the request intrigued her, right? And then it sort of like sets up the next part of the article where they talk about, you know, her getting the request and then her spending that time in Sweden. And again, I just show these articles because they demonstrate that writing, even if it's nonfiction, you know, even if it's a newspaper article and it's about things that really happened, if you tell it like a story, you know, people understand the information a lot better, right? And they tend to remember the details, and it just tends to make for more interesting writing. You know, if you can write about it like a story, right? If you can you know, if you can use some of those storytelling techniques that we've talked about in this chorus, and you know, like when we talked about Jimmy Comes Home, right? You know, that there's characters, and those characters do things, and there's conflict, and you know, people are surprised, and it's, you know, it's just it's nice to write things that way, right? So you're still giving your reader information, and that's your primary purpose. You're giving them information, but maybe along the way you might be able to entertain them a little bit. And, you know, if we think about the resume, so a nice little segue there. If we think about your resume, you know, your resume is the story of your life, right? And it's not the entire story. It's definitely the story of you being a professional. It's your workplace and your employment history. But another document that people use, and we had talked about this yesterday, when we were doing the when we were talking about the when we were talking about the cover letters, is I brought up this idea of the curriculum vitae. And that's it's basically a resume, but it's in a bit of a different format. And curriculum vitaes are more like for professionals, and this is when you're applying for a job, like if you're like a researcher or a consultant, and you've got tons of like professional experience in like one really specific area. Whereas a resume is a little bit more general. You could use that resume to apply for like plenty of jobs in like different fields. And of course, you want to specify your resume for a particular job. But in any case, the curriculum vitae, it literally means the course of your life, right? So vitae is life. These are words like vitality. And curriculum just means like the course. So it's the course of your life. And the resume is kind of the same way, right? And there are 3 general ways that we can organize a resume. And you're being asked to produce a chronological resume, so that's what we're going to focus on today. But it is worth pointing out that there are other ways to do it. So the chronological resume, the one we'll look at today, is when the most recent positions are listed first. This is the resume that's most common, and it's the one that is most preferred by employers. It's sort of like the default setting. It's what you should default to do. And then you might want to use these other 2, but you should do that only if you got a reason to. There's the functional or the skills-based resume, and these are when your skills are featured, typically used when you have a gap in your employment history. So people who've been out of work, either by disability or some other circumstance in their life has forced them to not be able to work, then they might want to do a functional or a skills-based resume, and then that's when their skills are going to be featured over their work experience. And then there's the combination resume, which is a mix of these 2. It's a mix of the chronological and the functional or skills-based resume, where you might each skill might have a job associated with it. For example, that might be one way you want to do it, but for today, we will focus on the chronological resume. Okay, so Chronos is an old Greek. He's one of the titans, so it means time, right? So organizing things by time. That's what chronological means. This is from your unit handout itself. So your task with this assignment is to develop a chronological resume of your own using the template outline provided on the next page. So what I did was I adapted that template, and I used that for my slide deck. We're going to use that model as a template for discussing what a resume is and how you should organize it. So you use the template, and then there's also a sample resume that I'll put up on the screen as well. So there's a sample resume, and there's a template, right? So and that's a really important strategy when you're trying to create any document. Sometimes you think you know how to make a document, and sometimes you might be confronted with a document that you've never made before, but you're being asked to write it. Like you find yourself in a job and they ask you to write a report, an incident report, and you've never done an incident report. So it's nice to have a template, and the template just shows you like the different sections that are going to be in this document. And then it's nice to have samples, right? So a sample is a finished product, and the template is kind of like a sample, but it's sort of like a fill in the blanks. It's like, do this, then do that. And a template will often explain the different parts of a resume. So that's what we'll do today. We'll look at a template. We'll look at the different sections that should be put in there, and then we'll have a look at a sample. Here's a note. If you already have a resume done, perhaps from an earlier course, or if you've applied for a job recently, you can use that, but you should take a close look at it and revise it as necessary, especially if you have not used it for a while and you have something new that you can add to it, right? So some new work experience or some training, or perhaps some of the courses you've taken here at WASA, you might want to include that. And that's a good thing to include too, right? Even if you haven't achieved your high school diploma, it's important to show a reader. It's important to show a potential employer that you're working towards something, right? So even if you haven't achieved that goal yet, it's important to show that you are working towards that goal. So what you want to do is you'll figure out once you look at the template in the unit handout, you can just fill that in and you can use that as your rough copy. So if you want, you can just like photocopy that page or just use that page and either by hand just fill in all the information in the section, or just use that and type it into a Word document and use that as your template to produce your rough copy. And then once you have that rough copy, you will then, save that, and then you'll mark it up and create your final copy. So remember, your resume is used to show an employer that you are the best person for the job. So it has to be as professional looking as possible and include all your qualifications and positive characteristics. You want to make the greatest impression possible. So just like our discussion about the cover letter, this is your time to shine, and this is your time to show an employer that you can be a professional, and you can take the time to create a document, and you're careful, and you're deliberate, and you think about things, and you pay attention to detail, right? So all of these things are going to show through in a professional and a professional looking resume. And then of course all of the negative things are going to show through if you're not careful, if you're sloppy, if you spell things incorrectly, if your formatting is weird, if it looks rushed, if it looks like you're not being careful. That's the signal you're giving off. So maybe a good example would be all of the signals we give to other people through our body language, and how we present ourselves, and how we dress, and how we talk, and all how we kind of interact with people around us, right? That's what your resume is going to give off a lot of information, just based off the words that you put in it. But that resume is also going to give off lots of information in the way that it's organized, in the way that it's put together. So really keep that in mind, right? So you're giving your employer a lot of information, and then the information comes in two basic ways, right? The words on the page and how the words are presented, how they're organized. So just like the cover letter, I've broken this resume down into 7 parts. These are seven different sections that you should include in your resume, in your chronological resume. These are the sections you'll want to include. So it's your name and address, your objective, your education/training, your work experience, your skills, your interests, and your references, right? So and it's up to you. You might want to swap these two around. So you might want to put work first, and you could swap these two. I think those are optional. I think skills and then interest should come down there. So you might want to swap those two if you want, or just keep that template like that. So number 5 is your skills. Number 6 is your interests, and number 7 is your professional references. All right, so we start things off here with talking about your name and your address, right? So this is your name and your contact information. So this is commonly done in, one of two ways, where it's centered at the top of the page, or, so you either center it at the very top of the page, or you do what's called a left justification. It's on the left-hand margin, and then everything is on to the left. So it's your name, your mailing address, and your contact info. And I mentioned this yesterday with our discussion about cover letters. You really want to make sure this information is up to date, and you want to make sure that you list contact information that you're going to use on the regular. Use your current phone number. Pay that phone bill. Make sure you can receive texts. If you're not used to checking your voicemail, make sure you have that voicemail password, and make sure it's an email address that you use all the time. Your objective. This is where you tell the employer why you want the job and why they should keep reading. Okay, so that's important, right? So, and it should be a specific job, right? Sorry, your objective should be specific. So Sherry wants to apply her skills in a community-based organization committed to the well-being of young people, right? Some other objectives you might want to put in there is, I want to work full-time. How much do you want to work? So basically it comes down to, like, how much do you want to work, or how much can you work, full-time, part-time, casual, and then where do you want to work? She wants to work for a community-based organization that's committed to the well-being of young people. Your education, this is listed in reverse chronological order. So even though it's a chronological resume, technically you're listing things in reverse chronological order. So instead of this happened, then that happened, then this happened, you're listing the most recent stuff first. So she got her 2022 Ontario Secondary School Diploma from the Birch Island Distance Education Center, and then in 2021 she got her first aid CPR training, St. John's Ambulance. So it's newest to oldest, and you're putting formal education and training of any kind. And you should say what you got. So 2021 first aid training, and then who gave it to you? St. John Ambulance, right? So it's when you got this training or education, what you got, and who or where you receive that training. So it's three components, right? That are very important to let your employer know. When did you receive this training? What kind of training or education was it? And who or where did you get this education from, right? So which organization, right? So it's good to list that, right? So they'll want to know where you went to school. Okay, your work experience. And just a quick note here on headings, right? You see how you've got each section of your resume should be divided by a heading, and that heading should be bold or larger than the main text. Right? So this heading objective, it's bolded, it's bigger, it should stand out, right? And so you really want to, and there should be a space. There should be a space in the middle, right? You want to use lots of white space. You don't want to cram your resume with information. You want to make sure that it's readable and people can easily see what the different sections are. Your work experience is also listed in reverse chronological order, with the most recent work coming first, followed by the later jobs. You will use the same format for your heading as you use for the objective, so you should be consistent there. And again, this is a similar format. So when you worked somewhere, so the formatting should be, you know, when you worked, then it should list the job title, and then it should list the job duties. And that can be in like this point form, like planned activities for clients and supervise them on field trips. So when you worked at that job, the job title itself, and the job duties. Then you list your skills. So make sure you are actually listing skills. So that's a very common mistake, right? So organization, mentorship, leadership, these are skills, right? List your best skills for the job you are applying for, okay? So list the skills that are relevant for that job, okay? So you want to tailor your skills to the job you're applying for. So if she's applying for a job where she's going to work with youth and she's going to mentor them, then she wants to show her mentorship skills and her leadership skills and her organization skills, right? You could even do like, you know, event planning. That's a skill, right? You could do you know, research, right? You could do you know, plan. Yeah. So these are skills that you could list. So make sure they are actual skills, right? You know, you could list writing as a skill, right? But just make sure it's specific to the job you're applying for. Interests, okay? Your interests they're important. They sort of they flesh out who you are as a person. They tell you what you're interested in and the things you like to do. So this person listed playing guitar, sketching, and photography as their interests. If you can, try to list interests that are related to the job. So these are like, you know, creative, active interests, right? You know, could help her support her youth, right? So, you know, do your best to list interests that are related to the job you're applying for, but, you know, just you don't have to, but if you can, it's good to list those interests and to just you know, just, and you don't need to list too many. You know, 3 to 5 is more than enough. Okay, your references, right? It's always best to list people here, but only after you've asked their permission. So you can say, you know, references available upon request, but I think it's best to have a person in mind that you can list. So if you list a reference with contact information, that's going to save the employer time. That's going to save them time, and that's going to help them to you know, just to get you hired faster, right? So don't list somebody if you haven't asked their permission. But if you've asked their permission and you've received that permission, then by all means, put their name, their current job title, and their contact information, right? So you're putting the person's name, their title, or their job, and then you're putting their contact info. If they're retired, then you just put their name and their contact info. And then maybe you want to just say, like, you know, explain why you're listing them, right? So, but that's a particular circumstance. Usually your references are people that are still working and are still working in a specific job where you worked, and they were directly responsible for you, right? That they supervised you in some way, or they were your boss, right? Those are the best people, right? To give you a reference as someone who was your boss and someone who thought you did a good job. That's the best kind of person you can have listed under a professional reference. All right, so I went to Indeed.com and I found this article. So it's how to make a resume with examples, and then I'll quickly pull that up. Whoops, don't want to do my chat here. So this was Indeed.com, and the article is how to write a cover letter with examples. With tips and examples. I think that's the one we're looking for. And so if you go to this website, this is the Indeed.com website. They've got a career advice section. It's got tons of useful articles and stories you can read online. So, I wrote cover letter. That's so how to write a resume. How to make a comprehensive resume with examples. I don't think that's the one that I wanted to share. I just want to double check here. Oh no, how to make a comprehensive resume. That's the one. That's the one that I wanted. Oops. Sorry, be right with you. Okay, so it goes over all the stuff that I've talked about here. It talks about the formatting. There's different formatting. We have chronological resumes. So we have the formatting here. And then what I'm going to do is we've got our examples here. So if we let's see here. Let's go up to the chronological. There we go. Maybe that's the one I should have shared it off the bat. So what is a chronological resume? And then we've got our formatting here. And then you can even just sort of like take this resume example and then just kind of copy it. And then you can put that into a Word document. So if I take that formatting and I copy, oops. When you copy from a website, you always want to kind of right-click and then go to yeah. So what I did there was I went to the website itself. I highlighted the text that I wanted to copy. I right-clicked on it, hit copy. I opened up my Word document. Here, let's do a blank one. And then I right-clicked on it, and then it gives you options for pasting it, okay? Whoops. So I copy it, and then it's not letting me. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here. Let's just go back to that website. They did have a section where you could simply download the resume template. Let's see what that does. Will it let me? Download the resume template. Well, it wants me to sign up for an account, but the easiest way would just be to, just a copy and paste how they've done it here. and then just sort of pop that into a Word document. One thing you might want to do, if you have Microsoft Word, and it's a very useful software to have if you do have it, is we go to New, and they actually have resume templates on their website. And let's see, so we got a modern chronological. So that's actually a pretty nice looking that's a pretty nice looking resume right there. And see, it's got it all formatted, and you might want to take that and use that, and then you're just simply, you know, putting in, you know, you put Mike, and then I put my address in here. So it's got this like built-in template that you can use and just enter your information in there, right? So there's lots of different tools that you can use that are online to build a resume. Let's see if we go to you know, resume chronological templates, and then there's lots of services that do that. There's lots of different examples of resumes. I would just be careful you're getting it from a reliable source, and you know, probably, you know, the best resume that you could ever ask for is for one that actually worked, you know, one that actually got somebody a job. That would be a very useful resume to use. But all of this stuff is really extra. If you can just simply go to the template that's used, the template that we listed in the course handout, and if you just follow the template that I've talked about here, you'll do just fine. You know, just keep things simple. This is really all about the content, right? You don't need the fancy formatting. This is all about just having the content there and just being careful with it and spelling things correctly, and again, presenting the best version of you. Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in. We will continue our discussion of Unit 3 tomorrow.